this person has taken pictures of my youngest son and photoshopping his face onto Holocaust victims. Then they started sending me pictures of acid attack victims, and then they started sending messages in Morse code. The message said "pretty for now," and it was posted on a picture of my face with the bottle of acid beside it.
Vonnie is a journalist and social activist from Edinburgh. For over a year, Vonnie has been severely and constantly stalked online. Anti-Semitism and acid attack threats have recently been at the forefront of the abuse.
It hasn't just been anti-feminist trolling, the nature of my work. I get that all the time. It was very clear throughout the entire year that this was the same person, and using elements of my personal life that had taken time to dig up and piece together so that they could kind of tailor a bespoke campaign of harassment. For me, that is stalking. You know, we're all digital citizens, we live in these places, so you can't just say that, you know, it's only stalking when it's offline, which has been a real misconception that I've come up against here. My mental health hasn't been great. I have stopped sleeping because, you know, when you lie down at night and the lights go out, all of these images like flood into your brain. The threats against Rosie Cooper MP, what happened to Joe Cox, like you can't put those sorts of things out of your mind. The anxiety has really intensified to the point that I don't really want to leave my house. People say, well, if you put yourself out there, you should expect pushback, you should expect a response. And I think that nobody doing any job, they should not be made to fear for their safety. I think as a woman, we experience a very specific flavour of abuse online anyway. And the sheer intensity, the volume of messages like this do bleed into your everyday life. I'm just doing my job in a relatively free country, and yet I'm afraid for my safety because people object to me having a platform and having a voice. I've always wanted to be a journalist ever since I was a little girl. Instead of playing out in the streets with my friends, I would sit in my room with my typewriter or with my boombox, and I could make radio programs because I just loved telling stories. So I am really lucky to do my dream job. I have to pinch myself sometimes that I've actually turned that little girl selling magazines to her grandparents into an actual job. I love it so much, but I never imagined that I would find myself being torn up inside. And I honestly have to say that if that little girl knew the toll that this would take on her life, on her friendships, on her personal life, on her family life, I don't know if I would have continued. Sorry, I'm actually getting a little bit emotional. I don't know if I would have continued to do this job, which, like, I cannot tell you how much I love it. Like, to think that there have been low points in the last year where I've seriously considered, you know, giving up my column, walking away and just, you know, getting an office job thing that means that people won't recognise me and they'll just leave me alone and they'll leave my kids alone. That's a really horrible thing to wrestle with, because if I'm not a journalist, then I don't really know who I am.
She spent the last year trying to report the abuse to Instagram, but has had little support, and the abuse continues.
In the past, the police have sort of made it very clear to me that it's extremely difficult to get the social media platforms to cooperate with them, that it's a really kind of intense process. So there's all this goodwill here, but no actual means to police it. So that's got to change. I think these platforms, which claim to be social media, it's really not good enough to not have a robust moderation and harassment policy. The fact that I could get a nipple out on Instagram and my account would be shut down like that, but I can try and communicate with them for a year about someone who is threatening my life. That's how I take this. And I get nothing but a sort of generic response back. Thank you for helping us make our community safer. We've reviewed this and it doesn't violate our terms of service, but thanks anyway. Because they don't see the context at all, because you can't add any personal information to what's going on here. It is not good enough. Like, they're reporting system is not fit for purpose. And I understand that the platforms are so huge, there are so many users, there's so many people generating content that it has almost become impossible for them to police. But we can't continue like this because this problem is only going to get worse. So I'd like to address the platforms. Please take our safety seriously. We need you to revisit your reporting tools that allow us to accurately reflect the scale and the nature of the abuse that we receive. Right now it does not work. I have maybe 4 or 5 options that allow me to report a single instance of abuse. That is woefully unfit for purpose. If you really care about your users, if you want to stop them from becoming a statistic, then you need to take responsibility. It is not good enough to just leave it up to the police who are unable to police it without your cooperation, because it is not just online. This is our lives. This has impacted my life in ways that I never imagined. It has impacted my relationships, my personal freedom. It has forced me to censor myself so I don't write about the things that I would normally write about because I'm afraid of the abuse that I'm going to get. So I don't want to have to opt out of social media the way that everybody else gets to enjoy just because of the sort of job that I do. Please take safety seriously, because it's otherwise going to take a real tragedy. Something awful is going to happen before there is change. This is your chance to act now and to take it seriously. Show us that you really care about your users.
There is no place for harassment on Instagram, and we are deeply committed to keeping Instagram a safe and kind place. We invest heavily in developing tools and technologies to prevent harassment and to make sure everyone has a positive experience.
Instagram have disabled 8 accounts that were reported by Vonnie for violating their community guidelines, and they have taken steps to ensure they are not able to create additional accounts using the same device.